They probably had some sort of a drought or something.
Oh, yeah, they had, well, there was wildfires and probably a drought and everything else that goes with it. But
Oh, yeah.
I thought of all the things that happen. Oh, there's Roy. Hi, Roy.
Hello.
How do you see other people?
How do you which?
Oh, there's Aubrey.
There's a setting,
Oh, I
Ann,
see.
along the top that's your view. It'll say speaker view right now. If you click it to gallery view, you'll see everyone.
I do. Thank you. I knew there was a way, but I forgot.
So we can start because our chairman's here, right?
Well, we're not even quite to 3, so we'll wait a few minutes for other folks to join us.
Okay, you're right. We have at least a minute.
You see the painting behind me? It's Pikes Peak, the Garden of the Gods.
It's gorgeous.
A
Yeah.
nephew of mine who about 40 years ago, he was 16 and he painted that for Jerry.
Oh my gosh, it's excellent.
Isn't that pretty? They lived in Pleasant Valley, or it's right near the Garden of the Gods. It's a housing development off of 31st Street in
Okay,
Colorado Springs.
okay.
Yeah. And Jim has the wildfire. That reminds me of Decker's and all up in here where it still looks that way.
Mm-hmm. Sure
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, Waldo.
Mm-hmm.
How did you make it that big, Jim? Is that a wallpaper?
Okay. On your screen for the Zoom presentation in the upper left-hand corner,
Uh-huh.
you should see 2 little logo things. And then is yours showing the recording light?
Mm-mm.
The flashing red light?
Mm-mm.
Okay, well, anyway, there's one that looks like a shield with a check mark in it, like the Nike swoosh. Upper left-hand corner is where I'm seeing it.
I see a
Okay.
camp.
Oh yeah, it says right by the Zoom word. It's kind of in the middle.
Is it? Okay, well, if you click on that,
Oh,
it
Zoom.
gives you a whole, oh, all right, click here to join the meeting. It gives you a whole menu of things you can do. And one of the things you can do is you can do a virtual background.
Oh, that's what you
And
did.
then you can pick from your photographs or whatever, what you want. I do believe that Roy has done the same thing.
Yes, I have.
Oh, Roy, I see. I thought you were outside.
I think Catherine has too.
That's a picture of the Garden of the Gods from,
Yeah.
where we are in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's lovely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see Tamara is in her office.
My daughter's trying to teach me how to do this background thing. I don't know how it works.
Pictures.
But my daughter said, I guess I need pictures to be able to do that. So.
Well, and some of us are unable to do it because either our computers or our cameras are not good enough or our backgrounds are too busy. So some of us, we can either vanish and just have floating faces in and out, or,
Yeah, that
or
happens.
you can see the mess behind me.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm just gonna have to be my plain old background. But yeah, that was my daughter. They're officially done with school. They checked in all their stuff today. It's pretty interesting what we've had to go through as far as school-wise. You know, they've been alphabetical order. You take your kids to school, let them go in with masks, and then they have to check in their library books, textbooks, and so we got our dog. And so
Yeah,
school's officially over. Thank goodness.
Yeah, it's been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica's by your count.
That's
do
an
we have
understatement.
Yeah, my daughter-in-law in Des Moines teaches 4th grade and her daughter is in 6th grade. So her daughter is learning remotely and Carrie is teaching remotely a fourth grade class.
Bree, what did you just say?
I was wondering if you think we've reached quorum yet.
We
based
have a
on-
quorum if you would like to get us started.
Okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get started in the interest of everybody's time. Hello, everybody, and
Right there.
nice to see everyone again virtually.
Right.
Welcome to the May meeting of Community Advisory Committee. Doesn't look like we have any additional callers besides members of the committee. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. So let me look at the agenda. So consent items, any issues with agenda minutes or the financial report anybody would like to bring up? Or can we go ahead and approve those?
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great. That was easy. Did we receive any public comments by email? I didn't get any.
No comments.
No comments. Okay. We are moving through this. All right. So first order of business, Catherine, it looks like you have a tip amendment for us.
Yes. I feel like I'm always ready to go, and then when it happens, I can't find the mute button. All right. So this is a tip amendment number 1 for our federal fiscal year 2021 and 2024 tip. This is the approved tip that starts July 1. It was approved by the board last month, and you all did a recommended approval the month before that. So this is an amendment you've seen before, but for the last tip, and it's just to make sure that this amendment goes into the new tip as well, into the 21 and 22 years that they need to be in. So what this amendment is, it's a request from CDOT, and it's the one that is for the build grant and also minor rehab projects on I-25 ramps at North Academy, Briargate, Interquest, and NORAD. And so these are all adding projects to the new tip, and I'll just do a brief summary of what the table says. So the first one is the add project for minor ramp rehabs at the I-25 North Academy, Briargate, Interquest, and NORAD in years 21 and 22. The other ones are add projects for the build grant on I-25 Colorado 94 safety improvements. The next one is add projects in 2022 for build grant I-25 safety improvements, the signal pool or a signal. The next one is add project in 2021 build grant I-25 safety improvements, surface treatment funding. The next one is add project in 2022 for build grant I-25 South Academy Bridge. And then the final one is add project in 21 and 22 build grant South Academy PPRTA funds, and those are El Paso County funds. And so these are all ones you've previously approved for the last tip, and this is to add it into the new one. And TAC recommends approval to the board as well.
So Catherine, on all the build grant ones, is that the military access project that's a joint effort from City Hot Springs, El Paso County, and CDOT and PPRTA?
Yes,
Is that just a different components of all those projects that are going on? Okay.
Exactly. There's a lot of different funding going into the project, and that's why you see all the different categories, but it is one big, kind of one conglomerate together, but broken down into pieces.
Okay. And then the ramp rehab, is that in conjunction with ramp metering, or is it just resurfacing? It says surface treatment.
Yeah, that is not, it might happen to be on the ones that have ramp metering, but it's not related necessarily to the ramp metering projects.
Okay. Okay.
So do we need to go ahead and move for approval?
Are there
Quick,
any other questions for Catherine first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other-
just a question for Catherine. This is Gordon. These are all being added to the tip, as I understand it.
Correct. All
Are
being
we
added.
adding them to the bottom of the list, top of the list? Where are we adding them at?
They're just going in by year. And so it's not really, we don't list them by like priority or anything. It's just listed by year. So anything that goes in the tip is considered funded and has the money available. And so they will be going in the appropriate years.
Thank you.
Catherine, I had a
Make motion to
question.
approve.
Just real quick, in the letter from CDOT, there were a couple other projects mentioned that aren't in the table. Is that because there was no monetary value attached to them? There was Research Parkway and the bridge for preventative maintenance.
Yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. So since they requested this to go into the last tip and the current one and this new one that will go into effect, some of them were requested to go in years 2019 or 2020. And so if they were going into 2020, then I didn't include them in this one because we don't have that year in the new tip.
Thank you.
Which that would be the Research Parkway project is one.
Correct. Yeah, so that one. And some of the items that are actually in this table had money that goes into 2020, and those aren't included in this either, since those would already be in the old tip and spent. And if they don't get spent, then CDOT will come back for an amendment to roll those project fundings forward. So you may see that come forward depending on if they've moved those funds or spent the funds or not.
Okay.
Do you know if that Research Parkway bridge is going to be funded through the SB 267 funding? Is that project going to happen, or is that off the table because obviously things have changed since, a couple of months ago?
Yes, so I believe the one you're referring to is the funding for the design phase that we added in. Sorry, I can't remember from last month.
Yeah, I think the design is pretty, well advanced. So I thought CDOT was looking to start construction this
Yes.
fall or this winter.
So
And
yes,
you're correct. It was going to be funded with 267 funds. Last we heard that is now on hold because the 267 funds have been, I don't know the correct term, if they're completely gone or on hold, or John might be able to better answer that question.
yes. So the 267 funds, they're bond funds that are actually going to go out to the market. But those have been focused on projects that were already underway, because the overall health of the program in 267, as well as the other fund sources, have taken a hit with the downturn. So CDOT's strategy right now is to move forward with the projects that were already underway or already out to bid. Anything else is going to be delayed. So the Research Powers project will be delayed. How long is anyone's guess, based on how deep and how long the downturn in the economy ends up being.
Thanks, John.
Okay. We were all very excited about that bridge over here, but now I guess we have to wait a little longer. Okay.
Okay, any additional questions for Catherine?
This is Jim. Did somebody make a motion a minute ago?
Oh,
I'll move we forward this with a recommendation to approve to the board.
I'll second. Sharon Brown.
great. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Okay. Okay, any opposed, same sign? Great. Thank you. Okay, Catherine, one more from you.
Oh, great. And so I'm not sure if any of you I don't know how much we've brought this to you, but there are some Senate bill, multimodal option funds. So these are state funds that were allocated for multimodal projects throughout the state. And there was about 96 million total across the state, and our MPO region was allocated just over $6.5 million to allocate for between our jurisdictions. And so to program those funds with projects, we did a call for projects starting back in January, and it lasted through April. And then we did a project selection workshop to select projects from the applications. We received 12 applications from our jurisdictions, and the total that was submitted or applied for was about 5.7 million. And so we had a little bit left over from that. And so because we had enough money to fund all of the projects that were applied, all of the projects that did apply were recommended for approval by the TAC selection workshop members, and then also again by TAC as well. And so in your attachment 1, all of the projects that were submitted and recommended for approval are in that list. And I can go through them kind of quickly if you would like, just to let you know the kind of the title of each of the projects. Is that helpful, or?
Yes, I think it would be. Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go through those. There's 12 of them, so it shouldn't be too long. Okay, so we have Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit, an enterprise asset management system implementation project. We have Woodland Park, pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, and trail overlay. A Colorado Springs Rock Island Trail signalized crossing at Murray Boulevard. An El Paso County South Powers Boulevard multimodal corridor study. Fountain Valley Senior Center, or INVITA, coordinated mobility on demand in the Pikes Peak region. Manitou Springs Creek Walk Trail Phase 4 and 5, survey right-of-way acquisition, design, and construction. Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit, alternate transit service implementation. Colorado Springs Shooks Run at Uinta signalized trail crossing. Colorado Springs Mountain Metro Transit bus stop, ADA compliance and accessibility and amenity improvements. El Paso County's ADA asset measurements and construction project. Colorado Springs Dublin Park Trail and at Dublin Boulevard signalized trail crossings. And then Colorado Springs Hancock Sidewalks Sand Creek Trail to Academy Boulevard. So those were all the projects submitted and recommended for approval. And so since there was some funding remaining after, if all of these get approved, that remaining amount, it was suggested by members of the workshop that a second round of call for projects be held. And in the memo, it outlines the recommended schedule for that, which TAC approved last week. And so that call for project round 2 opened last Friday and is open for everyone in the MPO as well for the remaining funds. And with that, I can take any questions.
So those projects will probably come to us at a later date then, right? Whatever comes in for that additional amount.
Correct. We wanted to get these ones through to make sure that we secure the funding for these projects, and then you'll see those come in later.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Catherine? Okay, doesn't sound like it. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to recommend this as is.
Any second?
Patty Bencher, I'll second.
You get that, Jessica? Let's see you.
Got it. All good.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, okay, thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Next up, I think we have Jody. Is that correct?
Actually, it's our legislative session update.
Thank you. I'm hopping back and forth between the agenda and the items. So Jessica, legislative update.
As of yesterday, the legislature did resume hearings. It's the first time they've met since March 12th, March 14th. They are trying to go through bills that were already alive. And the answer that we are hearing from our lobbyists and from all of our legislators, if it is not free, friendly, or fast, it will not be seen, or heard, or happen. There is an expected very large budget shortfall, as everyone can expect, with the sales tax impact of the last several months. And we are looking at how that is going to impact the long bill right now. The PPACG Legislative Committee is going to meet on Monday morning to talk a little bit more about what we're hearing for the long bill. We are already hearing some cuts possible to Area Agency on Aging services and funding for transportation. So we'll see what that looks like going forward, but nobody knows right now. That's really what's going on for your legislative session.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions for Jessica?
Hold on. Now, Jessica, does the lobbyist, how are some of the bills that we had identified earlier or that the legislative committee had identified earlier, where are they in the fast? What was the long list you had?
Fast, friendly, or free?
Free and okay.
So right now, several of our bills, the peer support behavioral health, medical providers for seniors, mobile devices while driving, are all standing at pretty high fiscal notes. So they are not likely to get anywhere. There is a broadband bill for rural access, and that bill might pass. It's only got a $5,000 fiscal note. But we're gonna see what it goes. There is still hope and a likelihood for the study on where veterans medical homes centers should live. That one is still likely to pass. It's a very friendly bill, even if it's not exactly free. And it's very far along in the process, so it will be fast. They are estimating that they'll be meeting for probably no more than 3 weeks. So, and the long bill takes a lot of that. So we'll see what happens.
And I'm sorry, remind me, these are bills that the committee and the board have put a support behind?
Those are all ones that we were monitoring.
Okay.
Other than the Veterans Center bill, and that was one we were supporting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Jessica, this is Ann. Can you hear me?
I can.
I wonder, this really is a strange bill. I'm also on the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority for Green Mountain Falls. And there's a House Bill 20-1151. Have you got any information on that one? It was
so far as we can tell, just so everyone knows, it's one that was trying to, in many ways, shift how RTAs would be created and worked. And that bill, so far as everybody is hearing from the legislators and the lobbyists, is dead. It won't move forward this year.
it'll just, yeah, it wouldn't be fast. I'm sure it requires a vote or something.
And not friendly. It's not something there's a universal agreement on.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Welcome.
Jessica,
Yes.
John DeVoe. Is your area agency on aging looking at or taking a position on the fact of that homestead exemption for 10 years over 65? That's going to double everybody's mortgage property taxes.
So the one that was in process in the legislature is dead. It's not going anywhere. It's got too high of a fiscal note.
Bless their heart.
One of the things that we are hearing is they are planning on putting on hold the current senior and veteran property tax exemption. Jody may know a little bit more about that than I do, actually, but because I can't remember how long they've called it, but I know they've called it for at least a year. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anyone else on legislation?
Great. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciate it. Okay, Jody Parker, speaking of the Area Agency on Aging, let's hear an update, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you all today. So my name is Jody Barker, and I'm the AAA Director here at PPACG. So thank you very much for inviting me to bring a little update around COVID-19 and how that's affected services both internally and externally. When we began working remotely on St. Patrick's Day, we immediately were able to continue reaching out to our current clients and community at large using the wonderful technology that we've been blessed with. So by phone, by computer, by Zoom, much like we are today. So we continue to reach our community this way. We've also added some outreach to what we normally do. Under the Older Americans Act, there's a service called Calls of Reassurance. And that is not something that we normally do from within our office. We provide those funds to do that through many of our community partners. In this case, though, as you might imagine, folks who came to us in January and February and early March had no idea that we would turn around and the country would ask our vulnerable adults and our older population to stay home for their safety. And so someone who may have come to us for questions around, say, Medicare or referrals to other kind of services may have had full capacity to do their own grocery shopping and meet personal needs that way. And all of a sudden we were asking them not to. So we made calls to folks that we had started seeing at the beginning of the year, working backwards to make sure that they had referrals to the appropriate services, answering their questions. And many of those, because they're calls of reassurance, can be as simple as, yes, I'm fine, I have what I need. And some of those, as you might imagine, go much deeper. Folks, especially early on, because of the mix of information we were receiving around COVID-19 and concerns, became very nervous, concerned, scared. And so our staff calling out both from our SHIP counselors and case managers, as well as our family caregiver support staff, have met a need to assure folks that they have access to resources with a simple phone call, and that's through our office. So that's been really great to see. We also began a program, is actually done by our programs administrator, Melissa Martz, who you may see in meetings occasionally. She contacted 26 apartment buildings that are independent living communities, but not part of retirement communities. So these are independent living situations. Apartment buildings generally don't have a very large staff and certainly don't have enough staff to provide services directly. She reached out to 26 of those buildings in our region, found out what their needs were, what their concerns were, made sure that they had access to us, speaking with those managers and some of the residents. She, along with several employees and volunteers, put together 1,300 activity packages and got those all distributed by the end of March, early April across our region. And so that extra connection has helped to develop a variety of resources across the region, making sure that we're connecting with our community. So that's been great to see. along with some of our additional outreach internally, we continued and finalized the yellow book. So the 2020 version is out and available. You just can't come by and get it except by newspaper boxes that we've placed on our front steps in the parking lot by the Chestnut Street doors. You're welcome, or welcome yourself or someone to refer folks to pick those up as needed. We also have our VA Medicaid guidebooks that are available for pickup as well. To speak directly to COVID and some of the issues that we've been faced with around our services, as you know, the AAA has about 5 or 6 services internally. But we contract with nearly 40 providers region-wide across all 3 counties. We were able to almost immediately with the Family First Act, our portion of that for our region was a little over $420,000. We were able to place that directly into the hands of those who provide direct services to our older adults, and that included primarily what's called material aid, and that's getting everything from food, pantry boxes, home delivered meals, medication delivery, personal goods delivery out to seniors to encourage them to be able to stay at home safely. Those dollars were provided to our region through the Administration on Community Living. We also did receive a portion. In fact, just at the end of last week, we received our portion directly from the CARES Act. That portion for our region will be $1.3 million. And as you might imagine, a couple of months ago, that sounded like a lot of money until the state started letting us know that we were going to have a state deficit of $3.3 billion, and how that is directly affecting senior services. And so we are, as Jessica mentioned, there's still a lot yet to be seen around what that deficit is going to mean for senior and family services that we administer funding for. We've already had 2 cuts and expect more. Fortunately, the 2 cuts that we have received were funds that were not yet truly allocated to aging and adult services in our region or across the state. They were simply in process of being allocated and were simply pulled away. One of those was the Homestead Act of 2019 that we expected to receive or $13 million across the state. Details were being worked out, how that would be split up, how it would be allocated, but the state has pulled that back. So it was not in our budget yet. So we take that with a grain of salt and know that it was unfortunate that we're not going to get that, but at least it's not taken from current services. The other portion was a Medicare package, or excuse me, Medicaid package that was in process, also had not been finalized as to the allocations. And so they simply just withdrew that. As Jessica mentioned, there's a lot of discussion right now with JVC and some of the funds around both the, as we know, at the Homestead Act, but that directly relates to the property tax exemptions. I was also on a call with the state this morning, and right now it's still, we're at a wait and see point because the legislators did just come back yesterday, so there's still a lot to be seen. We do we're just finishing up the first year of the first Homestead Act, which is comprised of the property tax exemptions. It was supposed to be a 5-year package, $3 million across the year, and we receive about $350,000 of that each year in our budget. So we're waiting to see now if the next 4 years will be put on hold or taken completely. So much yet to see in that area. Our concern with some of the language that they've been talking about with the budget adjustments to balance this deficit could mean about a $1 million loss to our region. That's across all 3 counties, Park Teller and El Paso County. Could be a $1 million loss to our region in services. Therefore, the CARES Act that we've just received, which is a standalone contract for the AAA, may end up being used to backfill the state deficit that we expect. So there's a lot yet to be seen on that. The state has extended our contract by 2 months to allow for some wiggle room in discussion and planning and expectations around this state deficit. The challenge with that is that we will receive our federal funding beginning July 1, but we will receive no state funding for July and August. So we will have to make up that gap through CARES Act funding, as well as the funds that are currently allocated in our region, but that we can pull back after June 30th and resort and reallocate to our providers. So it'll be snug. We're making a lot of plans internally, as you might imagine, to make sure that we can meet the needs of our providers and ultimately our constituents out in the community. A bit of good news, we did hire a mobility coordinator who will serve to bring all of the AAA dollars and the eventual FTA 5310 funds together, and she will work to coordinate all of those funds. A lot to work on there, but she begins with us July 1. And in the meantime, myself, John, and several other members of our staff continue to work with MMT and FTA to become the direct recipients of those 5310 funds. So there's a lot of work still going on, but we're really excited to have someone in full time who will take this project on, and she will actually be a AAA employee, but work across both PPAAA and PPACG in her duties. So we're very excited to introduce you to her come July. We are now currently in our RFP process. Our request for proposals were due on Friday. And so my staff and I are reviewing those requests. As you might imagine, because we don't know what our funding will be for beginning September 1 in the new contract year, we're going to start making the plans and start working with our providers as well as our technical review subcommittee to begin reviewing the requests and be ready when we do receive our new budget from the state. So that's where we are. Still a lot of exciting things going on, still meeting the needs. Our providers across the region made a lot of quick changes, turnabouts in the way that they provided services to folks, and continue to do that. So there's a lot yet to be figured out, as you might imagine, and what services need to look like moving forward in the short term and the long term. But we've got a great team of providers in our communities, and it's a real pleasure to work with them as they continue to serve our seniors and our community. So that's all I have for you today. I am open for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Jody.
My
Any
pleasure.
questions? Looks like you must have covered it well. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, member discussion. I know Jessica has at least one item, but are there other member discussion items anyone has?
Okay,
Jessica,
then
why
I'll
did-
hop in before someone else does. I wanted to let you all know that at the board meeting, the Wednesday after next, we'll be hearing an update from Tatiana Bailey on the economic environment and what's been happening and the impacts. And I wanted to let you know in case anybody wanted to listen in on the board meeting.
What date is that then?
Date
Wednesday.
and time?
It is June 10th at 9 a.m.
Can you all send out the link to monitor that?
I'll share that with all of you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items for member discussion?
May I speak?
Sure, go ahead, Jim.
Because I've been so reluctant to speak in most of my time on this organization. This is my last meeting. I do want to acknowledge with appreciation all of the work that you all do, that this members of the committee over the 6 years that I've been associated with it have done. It has been a privilege to be part of it. I think we've made a lot of progress in terms of how we approach our responsibilities and in understanding how the board itself appreciates our role and our input. So I bid you all a fond farewell. I am continuing now with the CAC for the RTA along with Anne. So we'll be trying to keep them on track, but they have some of the same problems, particularly since so much of what the RTA does is based upon sales tax revenue. And we still haven't seen the figures for let's see, we had part of March, all of April, and it looks like part of May has been closed. So the equivalent of at least 2 months worth of sales tax really being hit hard, and how that may affect the RTA planning. So it's interesting to continue that, but it's a different approach over there. So I thank you all for allowing me to be part of the group, and wish you all the very best.
Jim, you will be sorely missed. I'm really appreciate all you have done for the committee and the time you've been there. And I know I'm not alone, but I do really want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, you've been a great role model for some of the newer members that have come in behind you, and you don't just show up, it's definitely meaningful participation. So thank you, Jim.
Hey, Jim, I want to say thank you too. This is Ann. I remember when Jerry and I came down just to see what it was all about, and you were so kind to both of us. And I'll just never forget that. You're just great. I'm glad I'll see you some more.
Jim, I'm gonna be right behind you here in a few months, but I just wanted to say I've learned a lot from you the past 5.5 years, and glad you're still going to be involved in the community, and we'll be sitting on the PPACG CAG. That's good to know that you'll be sharing your knowledge and experience over there as well. So thanks for all the service that you have provided our community, and just keep doing the great work that you've been doing. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I need to say that you have been a real gem in the whole process, always bringing something. Since I won't be around when you leave, I can say this. You have always brought great insight and wonderful questions to the discussion. So appreciate that. And I will say this, I cannot believe you have a daughter. I don't know what her age is. But
almost 14, 13. I actually have a high schooler too. I have a 16-year-old. I'm older than I look.
Well, yeah, but you know, everybody looks younger to me anymore. So it all works out.
Well, thank you, Jim.
I'd like to just step in and introduce myself. I'm Rick Hoover. I'll be taking Tim O'Donnell's spot to finish out his term. And
Oh,
I'm
good.
also the RTA CAC. And so I'll get to be able to work with you some more, Jim.
Oh, that's great. Rick.
Welcome, Rick. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Any other items for member discussion? Good. Okay. Sorry. Items for next meeting. Does anybody have anything they would like to recommend for the next meeting?
No.
I had wondered about the status of, we talked a while back about adding some new organizations, or, you know, sort of dedicated organizational representatives on the committee. You know, there was talk about the Chamber and ABC, how they used to have a rep, but nobody comes anymore. So where does that stand, Jessica?
We have not done our call for new organizations. We should maybe bring that up at the next CAC meeting to discuss when we want to do that and how we want to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other items? Great, so let me flip back to the agenda real quick. You all have the meeting and event schedule in front of you. So sounds like there was some interest in the board meeting coming up and a presentation from Tatiana Bailey. Any final comments?
Let me ask a question. I'm looking at the calendar. If one of us wanted to zoom into like the air quality meeting, can we do that?
Yes, you can. On the PPACG website, if you go to any of the committees and look at their meeting materials, it has the agenda as well as the information to access the meetings.
So you can just click on that like we did for you?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, sounds like we're ready to adjourn. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful week, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.